The world's oceans are vast, deep, and mysterious bodies of water that cover over 70% of our planet. They are home to a wide variety of marine life and play a vital role in regulating Earth's climate. But what if we turned off the gravity on Earth? What would happen to the oceans? Would they disappear entirely, or would they do something even more extraordinary? In this video, we are going to explore what would happen to the oceans if we turned off the gravity on Earth. The concept of turning off gravity might seem like science fiction, but it's actually a real possibility that scientists are actively researching. By manipulating gravity, we could potentially solve some of humanity's greatest challenges, such as climate change and resource depletion. One of the most obvious effects of turning off gravity would be the loss of the Earth's atmosphere. Without gravity to hold it in place, the atmosphere would simply float away into outer space. This would have a catastrophic effect on all life on Earth, including humans, animals, and plants. Without the protection of the atmosphere, we would be exposed to the deadly radiation of the sun and would not be able to survive. But what would happen to the oceans? As we all know, the Earth's gravity is what keeps the oceans on our planet and prevents them from floating away. If we turned off the gravity, what would happen to all that water? One theory is that the oceans would simply float up and out of the atmosphere. Water is denser than air, so it would not be affected by the loss of gravity in the same way that the atmosphere was. Instead, it would continue to be pulled towards the center of the Earth. As the water rose higher and higher, it would eventually break through the crust of the Earth and escape into space. Some of the water vapor would eventually make its way back down to Earth in the form of rain or snow, but much of it would be lost forever. Another theory is that the oceans would simply vanish altogether. If gravity is turned off, then everything on Earth would be weightless. This means that the water molecules would no longer be held together to form liquids or solids. Instead, they would scatter and float away into space as individual particles. In this scenario, there would be no more oceans, lakes, or rivers. All the water on Earth would simply become gas and dissipate into the atmosphere. A third theory is that the oceans would continue to exist in their current form. This may sound strange, but it's actually quite possible. According to this theory, gravity is only one of several forces that hold the universe together. There are also electromagnetic forces, nuclear forces, and others. These forces are what hold atoms and molecules together to form the stuff of the universe. If gravity were turned off, these other forces would take over and hold the oceans together. In this scenario, the oceans would not float away or evaporate. They would simply continue to exist as they always have. There are many things to consider when thinking about what would happen to the oceans if gravity were turned off. For example, how would the tides work without gravity? The tides are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun. Without gravity, the moon would not be able to hold the oceans back and they would simply float away. Additionally, how would currents and waves form without gravity? Gravity plays a major role in the formation of currents and waves. Without it, the oceans would be completely still. Finally, what would happen to the marine ecosystem? Without gravity, all the fish and other marine life would likely die. They are adapted to live in a world with gravity and would not be able to survive if it were suddenly turned off. If gravity were turned off for just a short time, what would happen to the oceans? During this brief period, the oceans would experience all of the effects we have discussed, but they would be less severe. The water would still be pulled towards the center of the Earth and the tides would be affected. However, the oceans would not float away or evaporate. In conclusion, there are many theories about what would happen to the oceans if gravity were turned off, but none of them can say for sure. We can speculate that the water would either float away, vanish, or continue to exist as it always has. The truth is that we don't really know what would happen until it happens. It's possible that the oceans would simply float up and out of the atmosphere, taking all of the Earth's water with them. Or maybe the oceans would vanish altogether, leaving our planet dry and lifeless. On the other hand, maybe the other forces of nature would hold the oceans together and keep them in place. Whatever happens, it's safe to say that the oceans would not continue to exist in their current form. They would be affected by the loss of gravity in some way or another. Now, let's move on to something a little more fun. What if the oceans weren't water but soda? That's right. Imagine a world where all the oceans were fizzy, bubbly soda. What kind of world would this be? First of all, it wouldn't be very healthy. All living things need water to survive, and soda is full of sugar and other unhealthy ingredients. Fish and other marine life would likely die if they tried to drink it. Humans wouldn't fare much better. Drinking too much soda can lead to diabetes, obesity, and other health problems. So, if the oceans were made of soda, we wouldn't be able to use them for drinking or swimming. But what about the taste of the soda? Would it be delicious or awful? Well, that depends on your personal preference. Some people love the sweet taste of soda, while others find it too sugary and artificial. If the oceans were made of soda, everyone would have access to a constant supply of their favorite beverage. We could simply stick our mouths directly into the ocean and start drinking. No cup or straw needed. But be careful not to swallow any seawater. It could give you an upset stomach. And what about the bubbles in the soda? Would they cause any problems? Bubbles are produced by the carbon dioxide gas that is dissolved in the soda. If the oceans were made of soda, then there would be a lot of carbon dioxide in the water. This could cause some problems for marine life, but it would also create some pretty amazing sights. Imagine diving into the ocean and seeing huge bubbles floating around everywhere. It would be like being in a real-life version of a soda commercial. But what if someone tried to swim in the soda ocean? How would they move through the thick, syrupy liquid? Swimming in soda would be a lot harder than swimming in water. Soda is much thicker than water, so it would be hard to move around in it. Plus, all the bubbles could make it difficult to see where you're going. You might end up running into a jellyfish or a sea turtle, and that could hurt. A lot of sea life would die if the oceans were made of soda. Most marine animals are not equipped to handle the high sugar content of soda. Fish could possibly survive, but they would need to evolve quickly or they would end up dying. Humans wouldn't be able to breathe in the carbon dioxide-filled air, so we would need to find another way to get oxygen. Maybe we could wear scuba gear or build underwater domes. It would be quite the adventure. So, what do you think? Would you want to live in a world where the oceans were made of soda? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.